Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're diving into something that's, well, it's tough, but it's so important. We're going to talk about how to spot the signs of irrational behavior in the people around you. And look, this isn't about pointing fingers or labeling anyone. It's really about getting some clarity for yourself, for your own well-being and your own peace of mind. So let's start with a feeling I bet a lot of you know all too well. It's that feeling of constantly walking on eggshells. Right? Maybe it's with a partner, a family member, or even a coworker. You just never know what's going to set them off, so you find yourself weighing every single word. You know, the biggest clue, the most reliable indicator is almost always how you feel. If you're constantly feeling misunderstood, if you're always having to defend yourself, or if you just feel totally drained, mentally exhausted after you talk to them, you got to pay attention to that. Those feelings aren't random. They're actually data points telling you that something in this dynamic is off balance. Okay, so what do we even mean when we say irrational? This is really important. We need a clear, non-judgmental way to think about this. We are absolutely not diagnosing anyone or throwing around labels like crazy. Not at all. What we're doing is learning how to spot a consistent pattern of behavior that just doesn't quite line up with reality. So here's the core idea. The key word here is mismatch. The person's reactions, their thinking, their behavior, it just doesn't match the reality of the situation. You know, a really small problem gets this huge, massive reaction. You make a simple, innocent comment, and they interpret it in a totally illogical way. It's that lack of proportion that is so confusing. All right, let's get practical. Let's really dig in. We're going to break down 10 solid signs to watch for. And to make this a little easier to see in your own life, we've actually grouped them into 3 main themes. Okay, theme number 1 is all about emotional volatility. This is where you're going to see these patterns of really unpredictable, really intense emotional reactions. It's like logic just gets thrown out the window and feelings take over the driver's seat. So, the very first sign? Emotion always, and I mean always, trumps logic. For someone like this, feelings are facts. There's no difference. So you might ask a totally simple, practical question, and boom, you get this defensive, angry response that seems to come from absolutely nowhere. They jump to conclusions because whatever they're feeling right then is way more real to them than the actual objective facts of the situation. And this impulsiveness, that's what creates that walking on eggshells feeling we mentioned at the start. Their behavior is totally driven by their mood of the moment, which means there's just no consistency. They can be super sweet one minute, and then the next, they're exploding over something tiny. That unpredictability is a huge source of anxiety for anyone around them. You know, for some folks, chaos actually feels more normal than peace. It's wild, but a calm, quiet environment can make them feel uncomfortable. So maybe without even realizing it, they create drama. You'll see this when a tiny mistake gets blown up into a major fight. It's like they're always escalating things instead of trying to solve them. All right, let's shift gears to our second theme. We're moving from those big emotional reactions to something a little different: distorted thinking. This is where you start to see a real lack of fairness, a real disconnect from what's actually happening in the relationship. And this right here is a classic. Double standards. I mean, it's like there's one set of rules for them and a totally different, way stricter set of rules for you. They can criticize you, no problem. But if you try to offer even the gentlest feedback, whoa, that's a personal attack. They demand that you understand them, but they offer zero understanding in return. It is a one-way street all the way. Okay, this next one is so frustrating. It's when they twist conversations. You say something really simple and clear, right? But somehow they hear something totally different. They misinterpret it to fit whatever story they have going on in their head, twisting a neutral comment into an attack. And before you know it, you're in a huge argument about something you didn't even say. That is a huge red flag. Think about it. In a healthy relationship, you can disagree, right? It's normal. But for someone operating from an irrational place, a different opinion can feel like a personal insult. Any challenge to how they see things is taken as an attack. So what do? They lash out, they completely shut down the conversation, or they just withdraw. A calm, rational discussion? Pretty much impossible. And that leads us right into sign number 7, a complete disregard for facts. This quote says it all. I just feel you're wrong. You can show them clear, undeniable proof, receipts, screenshots, whatever, and it doesn't matter. They'll stick to their version of reality because their feeling is their truth. Any logic that goes against that feeling, it just gets tossed aside. Okay, on to our third and final theme. This one is all about how they see themselves and others in the relationship. We're talking about accountability, responsibility, and whether there's any real connection there. A huge central part of this is the inability to take responsibility. It's the blame game, pure and simple. If something goes wrong, it is never their fault. They are experts at finding someone or something else to blame, and they will often rewrite history to make themselves out to be the victim in the situation. Real empathy means you can step into someone else's shoes, even for a moment. But because people in this pattern are often so trapped in their own world, they really struggle to understand or even acknowledge your feelings. And that's why your boundaries get stomped on. It's why your real, legitimate concerns get brushed off with things like, oh, you're just being too sensitive, or you're overreacting. And that brings us right back to where we started, full circle, to the number one sign, the one that truly matters more than anything else: how you feel. That confusion, that exhaustion, that feeling that you're always on trial, defending yourself. That is your data. It's your gut, your internal compass, screaming that this whole dynamic just isn't right. So why does any of this matter? Why is it so important to be able to see these patterns? Listen, it's not about getting ammo to win an argument or slapping a label on someone. It's about empowering yourself. It's about giving yourself the knowledge you need to protect your own peace of mind. Because when you recognize these behaviors, you can finally move from being confused to being clear. Once you see the pattern, you can stop getting sucked into those manipulative loops over and over again. It gives you the power back, the power to protect your mental health and to finally set the boundaries that you need and deserve. And maybe, just maybe, the most important thing you can take away from all of this is that you can finally stop blaming yourself. This dynamic, you didn't create it, and you can't control it. Their irrationality says nothing about you or your worth, nothing at all. Just seeing the pattern, that's the first and honestly the most powerful step toward making a change. It lets you start making conscious choices about how you engage with this person, what boundaries you're going to set, and how you're going to protect your own sanity. So the question we'll leave you with is this: now that you can see it, what's your next step?